Hey everyone, it's Lexie. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you all the books that I ended up reading in March. So I read a total of 4 books this month, which I think was pretty good considering that this month was just all over the place. We had a field trip. We were basically gone the whole week, and then Easter and like all that. So there was a lot of traveling involved, and I was very tired during the whole thing. So I read 4 books, which I'm very happy about, and I'm currently like a quarter of the way through. I've been on this book for like 2 weeks now, so it would have been 5, but that was when all the traveling stuff was happening. So I'm pretty pleased with how everything that I read, 3 of them, I kind of covered in my reading vlog video, which I will link up in the card so you can go and check that out if you're interested. And so yeah, without further ado, let's get started. So the first book that I ended up reading this month was Renegades by Marissa Meyer. I was really excited when this came out because I'm a big fan of the Lunar Chronicles and I loved Heartless, and this was her first original novel that was not based on a retelling. So I was really excited, and going into it I had no idea what it was about. I literally just was like, you know what, it's Marissa Meyer, I know I'm gonna like it. So basically the premise of this, it kind of has a very like The Incredibles vibe to it. So if you're excited for the second movie coming out like I am, I think this book will be like a good preparation for that. But it's actually, it follows this world. I think it's kind of the future where there was like this big war between these people that have superpowers, and there's people that were on different sides of which role that they think these kind of peoples who have these powers should be on. So it follows 2 teenagers who are on different sides of the kind of the argument here, and just kind of how their worlds collide and everything that takes place after that. I think for this one, it's good to go into it blind, not knowing too much, and I think that's what made me really drawn into this world. It is a very, very big book, so it did take me a little bit of a while to get through it, but it was really good. Marissa Meyer, she's very good with the dialogue, and there's a lot of snappy dialogue in here, and so getting to see that in here in this new world was really neat. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I did find some parts to be a little bit unnecessarily long, and some parts that I didn't think would really added much to the story, but overall I'm really excited. It ended on such a cliffhanger, so I'm really excited to see what the sequel has in store. Next, I then ended up reading Yes Please by Amy Poehler, and over February I finished like Parks and Recs over the course of a couple weeks. I got to season 5 over 2 days. I was working crocheting on my owls, which I talked about in last month's wrap up. So I finally finished it this month, and I checked this out from the library, and I liked it. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I felt like some parts of it were really interesting. It's not really a memoir, and it's not, like I said, it's not really a memoir. I think it's a mix between like a memoir and a self-help book, and if you kind of combined it all in, that's what you would get. And I really enjoyed it, and just because there's one section here where she talks about each like actor that she worked with on Parks and Rec and her favorite like scene that she did with them. So it was fun kind of just finishing the show and seeing how it all played out. And I think I'm gonna pick up the audiobook for this because I've heard it's really good as well, maybe next year or later in the year. So just because you do get her like reading it, and you can kind of pick up on the sarcasm or how she intended it to be read. So definitely one I'll be picking up in the future, but I really enjoyed this. It was just kind of a fun, quick read. Next, I then ended up reading Gone Rogue by Marissa Meyer, which was the 2nd volume for the Lunar Chronicles like graphic novel series. And so I ended up giving this one a 3 out of 5 stars. I'm not the biggest graphic novel fan, and for this one in particular, for some reason, I don't particularly enjoy the artwork that they chose to use with it. It's just very kind of bland in my opinion. So basically the premise of this kind of graphic novel series, it's kind of right after the end of winter but before the epilogue, so it's kind of everything that happens in between. And so it was like we already know what's gonna happen, and like no of the characters is gonna die in between those things. So like I never really felt that the lives were at stake of these characters. But again, it was really fun just being back in this world. So like I said with Marissa Meyer, she's really good with the dialogue and getting it to see it and hear with some of my favorite characters and just the banter between them. Especially Cinder and Thorn, I think I particularly enjoy, and just kind of revisiting these characters again. So I was really kind of pleased with that, even though like I already knew what to expect going into it. So I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I'm not the biggest graphic novel fan, and I already kind of knew the general outcome of the story, but it was just kind of a fun, quick read. Lastly, I then read When I Found You, and oh boy, I had so many issues with this book. I gave it a 1 out of 5 stars, and I found the premise of this to be so interesting. It was like, it lasted through, this book has been on my shelf through a couple of purges like of unhauls, because I did find the premise to be so interesting, but oh boy, I had a lot of bones to pick with this one. So basically the premise of the story is about a man who goes out hunting one morning and he finds this abandoned baby in the woods. So he quickly rushes this baby to the hospital, and while the baby is fighting for his life, he tells the police, you know, like, I'd be very interested to adopt this baby, because his parents are going to be both in prison now for what they did. So and so instead of this man getting custody, the kid ends up being in the custody of its grandmother. And so flash forward till he is 15 years old, and he arrives at the same man's doorstep with his grandmother, who's just totally given up on him, and it kind of takes off from there. And this guy's kind of forced to take care of this kid who has all these troubles and has like a juvie record and all this stuff. So I did, like I said, the premise sounds so interesting. Like, I was so hopeful, but this novel like irritated me. I found Nate, who was the boy, like, it was really frustrating that Nathan, who was the old man who found him, like bent over backwards to make sure that he turned his life around, and he did not care. He continually lied to him and just completely turn their lives upside down. I'll leave my review on Goodreads down below where I go into further detail about this, but yeah, it just really irritated me, and he made me so mad. And like, the female characters in here, they're used just as plot devices, and they're only there literally to just serve dinner to these 2 male characters. And yeah, I don't even, like, I get mad thinking about it. And in the book, like, Nate, for some reason he wants his like dream, his career goal is to be a professional boxer, and you can see, you know, how high his ambitions are. Like, you know, I'm being sarcastic there, but like, his work ethic is just not there, and he ends up being cocky and lies and gets himself in a situation where he ends up with a traumatic brain injury. And so he has problems with his speech, and he calls himself the R word, and I think under no circumstances is using that word okay. And I was really, like, I had to like calm myself down from throwing the book across the room, because that's how mad I was, and how the author chose to use that word. And that's when I drew the last straw of this book. I was just so mad with it, and I was like, I just need to finish this so that I can critique it as a whole, because it made me so irritated. I do not recommend this book at all. Even though the premise sounds interesting, don't pick this book up. It's very offensive in many ways, and it's just, the character of Nate will just irritate you to no end, and you'll just end up really hating him. So that's it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. This will be the last wrap up in my apartment here, which is crazy. So these 2 years have flown by with my master's, so I'll be back in my original filming location back at home in April. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books or what books you ended up reading this month. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.